There are better ways.
Signal to noise ratio is not all that great.
Yeah, and there are ways to cut the noise weight ratio way down.
Yeah, but it is not very good for things like what I did, and there's the thing that you were on, Forrest, or is that Woody?
Woody,
Yeah.
yeah, Forrest Lee.
You know, posting a reference to something but not having a link to it.
Right.
If we had a place where all of these things were,
Mm-hmm.
you know, people could say, well, I don't know what the link is, it's on the page.
Right.
So
this
go
is
to
where
the
the
page.
blog option kind of
Right,
becomes
yeah,
a
that's
little
where the
better,
blog
so
option-
like-
Yeah, and I've said
And all the
across.
stuff that you know, all these proposals that I collected and stuff like that,
Mhm.
nobody could ever find them now because they have to find the email that I wrote that thing in, because there isn't any one other place where it's linked to.
Mhm.
So we need a place
Mhm.
where all that stuff goes.
Unfortunately, that exists, and you know, this is not new technology that we're having to invent here. So
Right.
it's just a
Yeah.
matter of putting in the time to make it happen.
I got
Yeah.
a question for you, Scott. You sent out a thing about your board meeting that people could attend to.
Yeah.
Hours, like if you're not a homeowner, you can't go to board meetings.
Nobody asked me, but my solution to that is that they could go as my representative. I could sign a proxy for them,
Oh,
and they could go as my representative.
I was just curious.
No, it's a reasonable question, and I had thought about it, and I was waiting to see whether anybody else would notice it and say, oh, I'll go, but I don't know that I can go. But I can give them a proxy, because we own 3 units over there, so,
Do you live over there?
no,
How many do you own here?
just one here.
Alright, so I would just sorry, go back, just to
Oh.
land on it, okay, right, we're gonna go with, at the very least, a mixed combination of open meetings and closed bids, right, or,
Right.
that there will be materials that we keep privileged,
Right.
but that our meetings themselves will be totally, the doors will stay open, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good for me,
Anybody
but
wanna change that, or talk about that?
Well, my
Thoughts on
approach to
this?
that is just presuppose it into happening.
okay.
I mean, there are other ways for us to demonstrate openness
Mhm.
and to rebuild some of the trust issues that I think are at issue here, and not completely throw open the doors for every
Right.
meeting all the time.
Well, and that's
So-
where the recordings come in. Is once we get the recordings.
Yeah,
on
they
the
can
website.
always have that, but I mean,
But we may
did
not
somebody
even
volunteer
want,
to do
you know,
minutes for this meeting?
Well, that's what the recording. That's what the computer is
Well,
I'm just not
that's
even
not quite
sure-
the same thing as
I don't
minutes.
know.
That's right, as minutes, right?
You know,
Not searchable.
3 or
much harder
4
to
paragraph
distill.
thing that we could send out tomorrow.
for.
Might be a really effective way to build trust, demonstrate that we're totally
Yeah,
open
we
about
just
what
need
we're
somebody-
doing here without having to actually broadcast
And
every
tha- and
comment
that's-
that gets made.
That's one of the things you do not want me doing because I take really abysmal notes.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I'm sure we can distribute. Yeah, we will probably need someone who's
Well,
okay with handling some
What would
of
be
the-
ideal is if we could find
text.
somebody to actually transcribe the meetings, but that's an expensive option.
Well, again, you gotta digest it, otherwise
Yeah.
people will not bother.
We probably don't need word for word, but we definitely need bullet points. So, but in any case, right, so this is, I think, well, maybe a question that we can revisit as actual examples come up. But at least keep in mind, right, like, everything that we're doing here is potentially monitored, and we need to be really reflexive about
Mindful, yeah.
exactly, to be mindful about what's going on, and not just in the negative, not just, don't let the bad things get out, right, but to actively send out there the stuff that we need to make sure that the residents are,
Right.
informed
And another
about.
level above that is, I think it was either Dina or Nina. I have a face for one of them, but no.
Dinas.
Okay. So, but anyway, one.
Yeah, I wish I would put their last.
Yeah, I think
Sometimes I don't know if it's.
I go by the
generic
email
or-
address, which has to be unique. So that But anyway, she has actually pointed me at a couple of HOA blogs, which is another one of those sets of links that would be really handy to have.
Mhm.
So there are communities out there, and moving up a level, if we can start talking to other HOAs, then that broadens our wisdom base even further. And that's another argument in favor of doing a blog style of communication. But there again, you have to be mindful of,
That's
your
also
conduct.
Somebody needs to do it, too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big responsibility.
so without in any way playing down the importance of doing some of that work, and you and I should grab coffee or beverages of any kind you like and talk about that and figure out what can we do. But the focus for me is using whatever we have at our disposal and making sure that the tools that we have are being used. And so in this case, for the moment, I'm thinking Scott mentioned that the what did Jason call them? The informal, you guys who are informal members
Homeowners
of
group.
Right, but
Yeah.
no, but the three of you guys should figure out, one of the three of you should write a note, I think, tonight or in the next few days that says, first of all, we've begun this process, kind of this is our starting point, and we would like to solicit your contributions, right? You have a company in mind, and this is a way to kind of get the, pull all those
Pull the
things
threads
out of
together.
Exactly, and so that we don't at the last minute have 17 people saying, "What about my pet company? What about my pet company? I want it my way, right?" So let's do that early. Let's see if we can draw that out through at least in part the Google group, and we can start to have, and that's going to be a resource instead of a burden later on.
Another thing you might want to think about, and I guess it's going to be the board's decision, but I think a lot of our homeowners are not going to want a management company.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
I
and
know
that's
they want a change in management, but not necessarily a management company.
and that's part of the whole discussion of, well, what is it that having a Remington Post-centric management gives us that a management company is, and we put that into the pot of things that we want.
This is exactly like Jason said that we did in 2006. We did the same thing. We had meetings after meetings, and then I was on it. And we determined that in-house management, proper in-house management, was more sufficient than.
Yeah.
But if I'm
And
saying-
we may come to that conclusion again, but based on what I've seen in the last couple of years, it seems that we really need some
Yes.
professional help.
Yes.
So, back to the comment that led to this is, are you worried about a revolt or something and having them say, we don't want professional management and, we're gonna vote the board
Well,
out
it
because
depends
they're
what you
forcing
all
us to
come
move through?
up with your template of what is provided, what is not.
And how and when.
Yeah,
Right,
there's-
and I think one of the biggest complaints right now in this community is that our manager is not on site when he's supposed to be there. So that should change,
right. Well, there's two separate issues. One is communication. I think you're right. A lot of people are gonna,
but he doesn't know this, Jason doesn't know.
a lot of people are gonna
It's
object,
coming
but
at
that's because the whole thing's gonna be a surprise to them because there's only 70 of them on the list. And a lot of them, probably more than half, are not reading the majority of the messages on it.
And part of the reason for that is the clunky interface.
Right.
And
Oh, yeah.
if we
But
get
so
the
they're-
interface
but anyway,
clear,
they're
That's
gonna-
clearly an issue, but I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
Well, let's deal with that.
So they're gonna be surprised and get all upset because they don't know
that's just
about
engineering.
Yeah, but part of what our task is going to be, and you pointed this out well too. Yeah, throwing pens. Part of the issue is going to be getting the word out, doing education,
this. Right.
and making the case for some of these things. And I think the better we get at making the case to the residents for something to happen, the better we are
Because,
going to be at getting things to
Right.
happen, right? I mean,
That's right.
Subjectively, all people probably think, oh, it's great to have on site. But when they look at the dollars and cents, it's what it's
Right.
costing us to do this.
Especially now.
And
I
Yeah.
mean, the thing.
Because
This may be
personally-
premature. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, I never used the clubhouse. If it was never open, if it was never staffed, I'd be okay with
What
it.
about your packages?
Well, I mean,
I don't get any.
whatever packages. I mean, how much is it costing me to have the
Yeah,
privilege?
that's right. It's
I
a
mean,
lot.
do
Big
I
packages.
care about? I already factored that in.
Right.
I already factored that in.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's-
I am paying whatever I'm paying so that someone calls me, so that I come and pick up a package.
Yeah, but
I mean,
that
the
is
majority of
sort
people use the clubhouse for that only. The majority. I mean, I don't think they do any kind of traffic log, but I mean, I don't think that there's people coming in and out of here.
There are a few people who use it pretty
Yeah.
heavily.
Yeah.
A few
It's out
people.
there right now.
There are a few people that use it very heavily.
That does not live here. He's a former employee. He's got a van. He uses the power source here. He's a mooch. Everybody knows
Is
about
there Wi-Fi? I was gonna ask.
Yeah, there is.
In here?
Yeah.
See, that's another issue that if they shut down the office,
Mhm.
There are
those
people
that
that are
use the Wi-Fi.
using the services of our facilities because they have codes.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't live here, they're mooch.
Right.
Well, and that's, I
See,
mean,
that's
that's-
what I think.
But I'm
Code
just
set-
saying,
code
For,
should
for
be.
me, I'm paying for
Same.
this.
You're paying for someone to mooch off of you, and you're not even using the thing that they're mooching, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That,
no,
that's
it-
the whole
yeah.
point.
Makes
There's,
good sense
I
that
would
you-
say that there's so many people here that are like that. Whether they're renters, I mean, renters, who's using this
Well,
place?
I mean, it's just a
Other
matter
than-
of, getting, because, kind of what we got now is a scattershot thing that's just evolved, and the idea is to turn it into a design system. And, stuff's gonna go away and stuff's gonna become more available, and, little things like the Wi-Fi needs, I mean, whether or not it makes sense to have a Wi-Fi here, I've used it actually in conjunction with these meetings, and so, but
No,
it's.
it is handy,
Make sure
again,
that,
it's
I mean,
expensive.
and it's, as in some, like in my house, it's just a matter of that's a side effect of having my backup system. So, it
Wi-Fi,
just,
by the way, was added after Barney came on.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
$80 a month.
Kind of a lot for
2 years.
Mhm.
Two years ago, because I was at the meeting when that was decided.
Yeah.
is that for the Wi-Fi or is that for the internet?
Internet.
Okay.
Sorry, internet.
Well, and that's,
Same thing.
so, well,
Internet,
If
yes.
you have an
They had
office, you have to
dial-up
have-
before.
Yeah.
So I have an outside management company question for people who have looked at bids. What is the length of time that the contract that we would sign with them would be for?
A year, the
It's
minimum.
A 1 year,
Yeah.
we could do like a series of 1 year contracts.
Although
Because
that will almost certainly be more expensive.
Right.
Yeah, okay,
Jackie,
well,
what do you have out there at the country club?
I have Beth, Mark,
Mark?
the person
Yeah,
Jason is
that's
talking to.
yeah, so the thing, I mean, the issue, sorry, please.
No, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to know who did that.
If you look at the two contracts that we have, actually, I think there's more than two contracts, there's two complete proposals, but I think there's 3 or 4. There usually is a termination clause in them, so that if you give them, some of them I think is 30 days, some of them is 90 days. So even if you have a contract for X number of years, some of them are, I think 3 years is what they propose. You can get out of it if you give them sufficient notice.
Although I suspect that they would be, that in an actual contract with Remington folks, they would probably want to lay out, like, if we're gonna fix all of your problems,
That's right.
you've gotta at least sign on for 3 or 5 or 10 or whatever
That's
they
right.
say.
There's.
And this is to prevent exactly what I'm suggesting we consider, which is get professional management in for a predetermined set amount of time, and then get those profit generating people and learn from what they did and try to figure out what kind of institutional things we can create so that there are non-human entities maintaining all of the things that need to be maintained.
Yeah.
Or off-site entities or whatever, right? But to say we're not totally committing to a professional outside management company for all time, which might also help some of the people who are not maybe comfortable
No,
with
I
outside
think this is
management,
important
have other
to
opinions.
capture as well.
And I will restrain myself from asking questions because I don't want to be recorded. I don't want to be in YouTube, whatever you say.
Well, this is,
It's a private,
yeah, it's gonna be set up so that
It doesn't matter.
okay.
Well, I think that's fair, and I think we should respect that
Mhm.
if people don't want to appear in certain
I
ways on
never thought
camera,
about that.
we should have kind of like an end of the
Well, this is,
meeting
yeah, Okay.
formally. But again, that goes against the spirit of like everything is open, and that's
Well,
why it's really
right.
important for us
but the
to keep
flip
in
side
mind
of that
this.
is that we do need to have a space for brainstorming,
Yeah,
which is just,
which should be uninhibited.
right,
Right, that's how brainstorming
that's the whole
works
point,
best.
yeah.
Exactly right. So all I'm throwing out there is that let's keep in mind the timeline also,
Mm-hmm.
because the people that we're talking about hiring charge a lot of money for the services they're
Mhm.
providing, and maybe they are worth it, but maybe they are the most worth it for the first 5 years, and after that they don't end up being that worth it. Granted, there are a lot of things that need to stay in shape,
And
and
I,
if we lose the professional management, they might not stay in shape.
That's the problem.
And also that,
If
you
I
know-
don't have a board that's on top of all these things, it
Yep.
just gradually,
It fades
Right.
back
Away,
again, and we
and
end
then
up
we're-
in the same problem that we are
That's
in
right.
at the moment.
in 10 years, right? instead of-
Exactly.
Well, I'm gonna say
And
something
if-
to
if,
that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if a property management company also doesn't have oversight, there's complacency and they have other people, so that, not necessarily the squeaky wheel syndrome, but they need to be held in check as
That's
well,
true.
so that they're,
Yeah.
Responsive to our
And
residents and our needs.
and that's actually one of the things that the new law addresses. And in
Mhm.
fact, back in our early email discussion, I think we heard some reports of property management companies that, for example, would only sign on if they could be exempted from the bylaws,
Yeah.
having to comply with the bylaws. And so it definitely goes both ways.
So actually, that if you guys will bear with me, and I don't mean to be taking up too much time, some of the barriers that we're running into for our work, I think it makes a lot of sense to sort of lay out what are the mines in the field that we're running through, and that one, the bylaws question, I didn't realize that the bylaws restriction was something that some companies don't like. I have some firms need job descriptions. That's just something we need to do.